What if the most important conflict of our time doesn't begin with an explosion, but with a policy decision? No dramatic invasion. No official declaration of war. No single moment you can point to and say, that's when it started. Instead, it unfolds slowly. Through trade restrictions. Through naval patrols. Through technology bans. Through quiet meetings in secure rooms. The rivalry between the United States and China is not a future possibility. It is a present reality. But to understand where this is going, we first need to understand how we got here. For most of the 20th century, the United States defined global power. After World War II, it helped design the international system. Financial institutions, trade routes, security alliances. When the Soviet Union collapsed, America stood as the world's only superpower. Its military presence stretched across continents. Its currency became the backbone of global trade. Its technology companies shaped the digital age. For a time, there was no real challenger. Then China began its transformation. In just a few decades, China moved from rural poverty to industrial giant. Factories multiplied, infrastructure expanded, ports, railways, highways, built at remarkable speed. Hundreds of millions of people were lifted into the middle class. What made this rise different was scale. China wasn't just growing. It was growing into something large enough to rival the United States. Today, China is the world's second largest economy. It is the largest trading partner for dozens of countries. It has modernized its military. It invests heavily in advanced technologies, and it increasingly presents itself not just as a participant in the global system, but as a shaper of it. That is where tension begins. Because history shows something consistent. When an established power faces a rising one, friction follows. But this is not the Cold War of the last century. Back then, the United States and the Soviet Union had very little economic connection. They operated in separate systems. Trade was limited. Communication was narrow. Today, the US and China are deeply intertwined. American companies manufacture in China. Chinese companies sell to American consumers. Financial markets are linked. Supply chains cross oceans. This interdependence creates complexity. It also creates vulnerability. One of the most sensitive flashpoints in this rivalry is Taiwan. Taiwan is a small island, but its strategic importance is enormous. It produces a significant share of the world's advanced semiconductor chips, the tiny components that power modern life. Smartphones, cars, fighter jets, data centers, all depend on them. China views Taiwan as part of its territory. The United States maintains a policy that supports Taiwan's ability to defend itself, while officially recognizing only one China. This careful balancing act has preserved peace for decades. But the stakes are rising. If control over Taiwan were to shift by force, the global economic impact would be immediate. Supply chains would be disrupted. Markets would react sharply. Military tensions would escalate quickly. That is why Taiwan sits at the center of strategic planning in both Washington and Beijing. Yet Taiwan is only one piece of the larger picture. Another front in this competition is technology. The 21st century will not be defined only by military strength. It will be shaped by innovation, artificial intelligence, advanced computing, biotechnology, renewable energy. These are the tools that will determine economic and strategic advantage. The United States has placed restrictions on the export of certain high-end semiconductor technologies to China. The reasoning is straightforward. Advanced chips can power not only commercial devices, but also military systems and artificial intelligence. China, in response, is accelerating efforts to develop its own domestic alternatives. This is not just trade competition. It is strategic competition over who controls the technologies that define the future. And unlike previous eras, technological leadership now translates directly into geopolitical leverage. Another area of tension lies in the South China Sea. This region carries enormous economic weight. A large portion of global trade passes through these waters. Energy shipments, consumer goods, industrial components. Much of it flows through this corridor. China has expanded its presence in the area, building infrastructure and strengthening out its maritime capabilities. The United States continues to conduct naval operations to signal that these waters should remain open to international navigation. Neither side seeks open conflict, but both are sending messages. Presence matters in geopolitics. movement matters. Signals matter. Beyond the military and technological spheres, there is also economic strategy. For years, the dominant belief was that economic integration would reduce political tension. Trade would create mutual dependence. Mutual dependence would encourage stability. To some extent, that logic still applies. But recent years have shown that economic ties can also become pressure points. Supply chains are now seen through a national security lens. Countries are reassessing where critical materials come from: rare earth minerals, energy resources, advanced manufacturing. Governments want more resilience and less exposure to risk. The United States has encouraged companies to diversify supply chains. China has sought to strengthen domestic production in key sectors. This gradual shift is often described as decoupling, but in reality it is more selective than total. The two economies remain connected, yet both are trying to reduce strategic vulnerability. The rivalry is also playing out in alliances. The United States has long relied on formal alliances in Europe and Asia. These partnerships provide military cooperation, intelligence sharing, and economic coordination. China, meanwhile, has focused heavily on infrastructure investment and regional partnerships. Through large-scale development projects, it has built economic relationships across Asia, Africa, and beyond. Different approaches, different tools, same objective: influence. For many countries, this creates a delicate balance. They may rely on the United States for security cooperation, while depending on China for trade and investment. Few nations want to choose sides. This makes the global environment more fluid than during the original Cold War. The world is not split into two rigid blocks. Instead, it operates in overlapping networks of cooperation and competition. The real question is whether this rivalry can remain controlled. Direct military conflict between the United States and China would carry extraordinary consequences. Both possess advanced military capabilities. Both understand the costs of escalation. Deterrence plays a stabilizing role. The knowledge that conflict would be devastating encourages caution. Yet competition can still create risk. Miscommunication, miscalculation, an incident at sea, a political decision made under domestic pressure. Great power rivalries are rarely defined by a single dramatic event. They evolve over time through actions and reactions. That is the phase we are in now. Strategic competition without open war. Both sides are strengthening their positions. The United States continues to invest heavily in defense modernization. It focuses on the Indo-Pacific region, signaling long-term commitment. China continues to modernize its military and expand technological capability. It presents itself as a central actor in shaping global economic trends. Neither side is retreating, but neither side appears eager for direct confrontation. The broader significance of this rivalry goes beyond the two countries themselves. It touches global trade, technological standards, climate policy, energy markets, and financial systems. For example, debates over digital infrastructure are not just technical discussions. They involve questions about data security, governance models, and influence. Financial systems also play a role. The US dollar remains dominant in global trade, but conversations about diversification and alternative systems are increasing in some regions. These shifts are gradual, not sudden, but over time, small adjustments can reshape global structures. What makes this period especially important is timing. The global system is already facing stress. Economic uncertainty, regional conflicts, technological disruption. When major powers compete during such a period, the ripple effects spread widely. And yet, cooperation still exists. The United States and China engage in trade talks. They communicate through diplomatic channels. They participate in international forums. On issues like climate change and global health, there remains room for dialogue. Competition does not eliminate communication. In fact, communication becomes more important when competition intensifies. The future of this relationship will likely be defined by management rather than resolution. There may not be a clear winner or loser. Instead, there may be long-term adjustment. The United States may remain a central global power while adapting to a more multipolar environment. China may continue to expand its influence while navigating internal and external challenges. Power transitions in history have often been turbulent. But history is not destiny. Leadership decisions matter. Institutional strength matters. Strategic patience matters. The defining feature of this rivalry is not dramatic confrontation. It is sustained competition across multiple domains: economic, technological, military, diplomatic. It is quieter than past confrontations, but in many ways it is broader. The world is watching closely, not for a sudden clash, but for gradual shifts. Will the two powers establish clear boundaries that prevent escalation? Will economic interdependence continue to act as a stabilizing force? Will alliances and partnerships create balance rather than division? These questions do not have simple answers. But one thing is certain: the relationship between the United States and China will shape the 21st century more than any other geopolitical dynamic. Not because war is inevitable, but because influence, technology, and economic power are being recalibrated in real time. This is not a story of inevitable conflict. It is a story of strategic adjustment. Two powerful nations navigating a world that is changing faster than ever before. The outcome will not be decided in a single year. It will be shaped slowly, through policy choices, strategic discipline, and the ability to manage competition without letting it spiral. The rivalry is real. The stakes are high, but the future